Canada. I love Canada.
Everyone, and thank you all for joining us. My name is Alyssa Karpenka, and I'm the event coordinator for McNally Robinson Booksellers in Saskatoon. This event is coming to you from Treaty 6 territory, the traditional lands of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dene, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, and Métis nations. Just to note that this event is being live streamed to our YouTube page, so please be aware of the webcam behind you. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the launch of Leave My Bones in Saskatoon by Michael Afenfia, published by Griots Lounge Publishing Canada. Thank you to Michael for being here tonight, and thank you also to our special guests for the evening, drummer Moses Idowu and our discussion host Anita Ogurlu. I'll tell you a bit about our guest this evening. Moses Idowu hails from Kogi State, Nigeria. He is currently a student of agronomy at the University of Saskatchewan. The percussionist uses music as his powerful tool for fostering social cohesion and propagating multiculturalism in Canada. Most significantly, he is helping African Canadians have a deeper sense of belonging in the cultural mosaic through the symphonic blend of different genres of music embedded in the rich and diverse cultures present in Canada. I'll now ask Moses to come up. Please give him a warm welcome.
Thank you, everyone. I present you the turkey drum, all the way from West Africa, Nigeria. To be precise, we call it Oyo Alafin. So this powerful, this dynamic instrument is capable of projecting the human voice. And in music, we have the atonic scale. So these are the capacity it has the capacity to project all the atonic scale in music. So now you may not understand what I'm playing, but I still want you to enjoy, because in my language, where I came from, we use this as a medium of communication, and we use it to serenade events too. So enjoy the culture and stay tuned. So I'll be playing a couple of classical pieces, but the most common one, I would like one of you to guess it. Sorry, please. Guess. Na 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 na. For African folks, I would like to play this. Samina Mina. So who can guess now? Ooh.
Try again.
So right now, I actually want you to dance. So I would like to honor. So this is called I call it so the reading goes, I love Canada, I love Canada. And I would like to project your name. Sorry, ma. What's your name?
Helen.
Helen. So, and initially I told you this. It can project what? Names and any tone. So, Helen. So I want you can increase it. I will turn it to reading. I will play it and I will turn it to reading. So what is that? Emily. So I want you to dance. Can you increase the volume? So you can dance. That is the last one. Yeah, you can stand up and dance.
Please give Moses another round of applause. All right, I'd like to tell you a bit about our speakers this evening. Michael Afenfia is a storyteller and author of several critically acclaimed novels that have been nominated for awards in his home country of Nigeria. He is a lawyer with a master's in business administration, a public speaker, and mentor to many upcoming writers. He is currently the executive director of Saskatchewan Association of Immigrant Settlement and Integration Agencies. Anita Ogurlu is a cultural bridging facilitator and university lecturer who has lived for over 25 years in Istanbul, Turkey. She experienced rapid social change firsthand through the effects of globalization. Born in Saskatchewan, educated in Toronto, Istanbul, and London, she has published works on social change, mass media, autobiography, and the European interwar period. I will now turn things over to them. Please give Anita and Michael a warm welcome.
Is that on? Okay. Well, I just want to say thank you so much. It's a very humbling experience to be invited here to help discuss and launch your book, Michael, from a renowned Nigerian and now Canadian author. And I'd just like to say thank you to all of you who came. It's lovely to see you here and to see such a diverse crowd. So I guess I could start by saying, you know, this heartfelt and enlightening story of a newcomer experiences in Saskatoon and this transition between two nations, you know, you've really helped put us on the map. So, you know, red pepper, Tim Hortons, double-double, winners, minus 51 wind chills, Fuddruckers, burgers and onion rings, the muses of Rob and Shauna over the radio waves, the spectacular sunsets across the University Bridge, and of course, last but not least, some of our own tribal music. Pour Some Sugar on Me from Def Leppard. You know the song? Pour some sugar on me. Okay. Thank you for that. So as a friend and an insider to your life, especially some of it when you first got here, I'm always looking for your experiences across the book. I'm trying to say, now, I know he lived that one, but I'm not sure about the other one. So I'd just like to say that this is a very lovely book that's very poignant stories of the Owoicho and Ochanya couple from Abuja in central Nigeria who come with their 4 children, Inalegu, who's a 17-year-old bright young man, a Chelsea fan, Ochanya, a 15-year-old lovely girl turning 16, sweet 16, and Okope and Ejuma, the twins of 13. And it's about their journey from Nigeria to Canada in realizing their dreams. Whose idea was it to come? What sacrifices needed to be made to get there? What strange fate awaits Owoicho's family on July 7th? And are their expectations dashed or met when they settle in Saskatoon? I greatly appreciate Book 1 that sets the story in Nigeria just as much as I did Book 2. And I really appreciate in the book that you've avoided the danger of a single story, as most of you will know Chimamanda Adichie warned against. And instead you've captured what Nigerian writer Chinua Achebe calls the balance of stories. So to introduce us to the book, would you mind reading page, I think, 146 to 147 and introduce us to Jonathan? I think that's when you first arrived, and that's one of your first experiences in the book.
Thank you so much, Anita. Before I read, just to say thank you to everyone. Every time somebody walked in, I'm like, oh my God, they came. I was anxious that we weren't going to fill the seats. So thank you so much for coming, and I'm seeing faces I haven't seen in such a long, long time. And in case you're wondering what's happening here tonight, it's nothing. It's nothing. It's just the Nigerian invasion.
I'll dance to Moses' drum anytime.
So you wanted me to read?
Yes, if you don't mind. Tell us tell us a bit about Jonathan
Okay.
from 146 mid-page.
Well, so I'll just read and then I would continue. So I'm reading from 146. Is that everything? The porter inquired. Owoicho saw him size up the last bag as if wondering whether or not he should ask for help to get it off the ground and onto his cart. Yes, John, that's all we've got. Owoicho called him by his name, to which the Ghanaian acted visibly surprised. You know my name? The Turkish-looking, bearded and well-spoken airport auxiliary employee asked with a resolute smile plastered on his face. The tag on his shirt, it says here, Jonathan Dumelu. Owoicho pointed out, are you related to John Dumelu, the Ghanaian actor? I get asked that a lot, but no, we're not related. And in fact, I've never met him. I am also not an actor, although I used to be on television a lot before I moved from Kumasi to Saskatoon about 3 years ago. Really? It was a Owoicho's turn to be surprised. What did you do on TV? I used to sing for one of the most powerful televangelists back in Ghana. He was a popular pastor and he would call me up to sing before he started preaching. That is how I became popular too. And most people in Ghana know me as the Salvation Place singer after the name of his church. I mean, I'm walking on the streets and people are shouting the name of the church, shouting my name and begging me to sing for them. I was doing very well, I tell you. I was also a chartered accountant in my municipal government and the job paid very well. Honestly, it paid really well and I was comfortable. The smile didn't leave his face, though Owoicho saw traces of sadness in his eyes as he told his story. If so, what are you doing here working as a porter? Brother, you will soon learn. John replied ominously. He kept his smile, but this time he didn't match the gloominess on the rest of his face. At this point, Owoicho concluded that John's smile was dubious. It was part of his uniform and not at all from his heart. Obviously, it was an act he had to put up for his bosses if he wanted to stay employed. In his head, Owoicho could see the exact page and paragraph in the office handbook where it was written, you will lose your job the day we get the complaint that you are not smiling. Though Owoicho wasn't Ghanaian, he knew that in West Africa, no well-educated person would be smiling and happily doing a job that could be considered lower than their educational qualification and perceived status in the society. People aspire to be higher, get better jobs, and move on to bigger things. The reverse was never the case. The journalist in him couldn't help wondering what John's backstory was, what the singer/accountant-turned-porter wasn't telling him, and what the young man truly felt about the job he did at the airport. Owoicho wondered why he didn't just change jobs if he wasn't happy with the current one. What do you mean by that statement? You will soon learn. Owoicho asked, wanting to tease out some more information from his fellow African. I take it you and your daughter are permanent residents arriving in Saskatoon for the first time. Brother, all I can say is, welcome to Canada.
So that excerpt was, So I take it from that well, there's lots to learn in there about having a constant smile and customer satisfaction, but I don't think Owoicho is even aware of what's about to
Owoicho isn't aware, like many immigrants are not aware. Thank you for starting off with the references to Saskatoon. Like I say it all the time, like Saskatoon has been kind to me, and so this book is like my ode to Saskatoon. And I know how many people back home and all over the world, really, where my readers are, have Googled Saskatoon because this book is called "In My Bones in Saskatoon." Like they didn't even know it was a real place. This is my ode to Saskatoon. And to Canada as well. And Canada has been kind to me. Saskatoon has been home, for me, to me for so long, 3 years, and I'm extremely grateful. But just like me, a lot of people, immigrants who come to Canada, and have no idea of the challenges that they will face. And it's not just coming to Canada, really, for anyone who was going anywhere to start a new life, right? But in the case of Canada, it's very peculiar because there are all these processes, forms you fill, money you pay, things you do, job requirements you have met, and then you come here and you don't have Canadian experience, you don't have, your resume, whatever, and then you end up doing jobs that will shock you, so, and people don't tell their stories, so I thought, what, I'll tell my story.
Yes, you've told it, and very, very well. And I'm just curious, though, if we could jump to book 1 before we get into all those troubles of finding work here. So I'd like you to take a look at book 1, and I have something I'd like you to read on pages 60 and 62. So this is, I think you are going to go to visit Ene's parents. So this is your in-laws, and Owoicho is going to tell his in-laws, Elder Erasmus Eje Onoja, and his wife, Madam Elsie, that he's leaving. And I wonder, what is it like to tell someone you're leaving?
Yeah, so I don't know about other immigrants, but maybe the Nigerians here can relate. Like, it's a secret. You don't tell anyone you're leaving until you're at the airport and they've stamped you in, like they can make the phone call. So Owoicho had decided he was going to move to Canada, and at the last minute he had to tell his in-laws. Did I hear you say Canada? Elder Ejo Onoja asked. That's his father-in-law. Yes, sir. We are planning to relocate to a state in Canada called Saskatchewan. At this time, I'm sure even he couldn't pronounce Saskatchewan. And then the father-in-law says, Sas, what did you call it again? Madam Elsie struggled to repeat the name she had just heard. Saskatchewan. Is that in Canada or Brazil? It's in Canada, Owoicho replied. I've never heard about such a place before. Are there other Nigerians there? His father-in-law wanted to know. There are. We hear the Nigerian population is growing, and there are many other African immigrants there. They also say it's a nice and quiet place, much like Benue is compared to like Lagos or Kano. So why didn't you people tell us about this move you are making to relocate to Canada? And when you were both planning to leave, his shocked mother-in-law inquired, we have to travel within 90 days of the issuance of the visas, otherwise they will expire, which I explained. The way we had it figured out, we would have left Nigeria in August or September when the weather is still warm, and so that the children can begin school at the start of the school year. This is a big surprise, his father-in-law said, perplexed by the news. When were you planning to tell us? And then the children came to spend a few days here, and they left without mentioning Saka? Or what did you call the name of the place? There wasn't even the slightest hint from them about this thing you said now. I can show you the passports if you want to see them, sir. I'm not saying that I do not believe you, and I most certainly do not need to see your international passport to know you are not lying to us. I just think it's strange that Ene will be planning such a big thing and not tell us, even when she was in Makurdi a few days ago. I mean, she must have known that in a few months, but both of you and the children will be living for somewhere saner and safer for all of you, and we would have been fine with it. But they kept it a secret from her. She kept it a secret from even her mom and dad.
Yeah. I think that means a lot that people keep something a secret. They don't want to jinx it, right? And that's quite common with many people that come here. I know from different places they come and they're always keeping it quiet. And there's also maybe a little bit of guilt. You're leaving people behind, and will they understand, and so on. But I think they took it well. But there's a lot of sacrifice that comes into that, and I'm glad that you brought that in, because I think the amount required is to the tune of 32 million naira. That's an enormous sum for middle class, and while you haven't read that part though, there's a lot of scrambling that has to be done for middle middle-class people to gather that amount of money, and especially with the rapid devaluation of the Naira. So I really sense in Ennis parents that they represent a stable, older Nigeria, perhaps with some strong moral values and state institutions that seem to be slipping away, and that traveling to someplace saner gives a strong hint to that. And I see a lot of wisdom in their souls, and I can appreciate it must be very hard for them, but yet they send you with grace, and Owoicho off with the family to Canada.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I see that character, and I see, reminds me of my father, who was chief of police, in my home, my home state at some point, and how you may have heard these stories about Nigeria and stuff like that. But I remember my dad, like, politicians would come to him, and people would come to him, and they would offer to buy my sister's cars, like, give cars to my mom, and my dad would say no, and that left a lot in me.
Yeah.
Like, you could say no to some things.
Yeah. There wasn't that corrosion of character, the strong, solid, moral, strong Nigeria. So it's not a single story of Nigeria. It's very rich, and I really appreciated that. So maybe we should head to Saskatoon, back to Saskatoon, Michael, if that's okay. So, Jonathan gave the cue that there's going to be, well, you'll find out, right? So what are some of the challenges Owoicho faces? And you portray him as a very moral character. He's got this strong sense of what he wants, and he's a famous journalist, well-known anchor on a television station in Nigeria. So what kind of work does he start with? You have two choices, either page 206 or the tougher one on 221 to 222. You choose.
Oh, I'll leave the tougher one for the people who will buy the book.
That's right. Good. So there's keep an eye on that page 221 and 22. Please go ahead.
I'll do 206. Okay,
Yeah.
so I don't disagree with you on that point. There's work to do, and someone has to do it. My only problem is that if a big retail company is looking for store clerks, why do they have to hire a lawyer from Nigeria for that? If the agricultural sector is short of farmhands, why they don't need a pharmacist from Iran to harvest crops from the fields? And if Saskatoon needs more taxi drivers, why should a tech guru from India or an engineer from Burundi be the one to do the job? Redhead Cake chose that moment to announce the end of the lunch break, so Owoicho didn't have to answer the question posed by his friend. They went back to work, and neither of them spoke about their challenging experiences and the trauma of settling down until the day was over. Before leaving the building, both men exchanged phone numbers. Owoicho wanted to stay in touch to find out more about the tree planting gig. He was already thinking about next year and wanted to keep his options open. When Owoicho got home that afternoon, his fingers were ashen and almost numb from the freezing temperature in the cold room. He looked at his hands and then thought about the pay and how to help with his bills. He wanted to be strong and endure the pain and discomfort because of his daughter and the bright future he wanted her to have in Canada. That was what he did. And a lot of men, immigrants and non-immigrants, did that every day. He thought about it long and hard. Should he or shouldn't he go back? In the end, he decided he wasn't going back to farm fresh delight. It just wasn't for him. He tried, but all that bending and lifting and exposure to extreme cold conditions, all in the name of survival, wasn't him. It wasn't worth it. If he got pneumonia and died, his daughter would be an orphan, and he would never forgive himself, even in death, if that happened. Owoicho wasn't comfortable continuing with the job. Didn't see himself getting used to it. Not now, not ever.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic, right? You mentioned minus 51 wind chills, and then you go into a cold room at minus 16 and you spend another 8 to 10 hours. Very difficult survival jobs, right?
Yeah, because this is fiction. But this was me. This was good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
And it's hard.
Yeah. And there are others in this room that have also lived that.
Yeah.
And I'm very appreciative that you say also that lots of men, immigrants and non-immigrants, did it every day, but it seems to be the majority are immigrants, right?
Yeah.
It's almost a strange system, which I think we can talk about a little later. So is there anything that we can learn about this employment that is related to identity and perhaps the identity of others, and how people have to even change their identities just to get the job? So I'm thinking about Bimpe. I didn't really give the names of some of the Nigerian diaspora here in Canada, but I could do that very briefly, and you had some wonderful characters. So Bimpe and Damiete and their son Jason, Oroma Eleme, a 37-year-old woman, still unmarried, who follows Chike to Canada, and Ratama, Oroma's older sister, who sells aphrodisiacs to wealthy Nigerian politicians. Chike Uchendu, who, the love of Oroma's life, but then she has a surprise when she follows him to come here. Obina, also a former banker, working in survival jobs, and, engineers, teachers, all those professionals, right? So could you tell us a little bit about that identity change, perhaps, and read from page 163 about Bimpe? Is that okay?
Yeah, 163. And while I look for page 163, just to say, like, it's hard, but even across in this room, I look across the faces and I see my Nigerian brothers and sisters, and they've done very well for themselves. Like they dig in. Yeah. 163.
Mid-page
Okay,
of that one paragraph.
Yeah, Bimpe laughed at Ochanya's joke, and then she got serious again. Okay, big girl, a couple of quick things. Here, we don't say fire or puka, we say stove. Another thing you must remember is that here in Canada, no one calls anyone auntie or uncle. People are addressed by their first name only, so please remove that auntie you say when you call me. I am not that old. Finally, and this is very, very important, you and your father have been calling me Bimpe. My name is no longer Bimpe, my name is Bree. That is what everyone calls me now, and I will appreciate it if you both did the same.
Brianna Brown is her new name. And I can really sympathize with that. I can empathize a lot, and you might think, how on earth could I? But if I had to admit, and maybe there's a few in here might follow what I mean, this isn't the first time it has happened, even for us and our family. So our long, long Ukrainian name of Ivanochko could never be pronounced here. And so when some of our family members went to Ontario in a very British 1940s Toronto, they chopped off half of their last name. So they chopped off the Ochko to have Ivan, so that they could also survive. So it's something that some of us experience as well. And to this day, my sister knows that people still can't pronounce the name properly, like at the bank today.
And so even for my case, and at some point in my life, I became Michael.
Another lie. Okay.
So, and I've been in rooms where people have said stuff about, oh, Michael is a great guy, Michael. And then when Michael shows up, okay. If I had like my other African name per se, like that confusion wouldn't have existed. Because, okay, the name gave it away, right? For people, Michael, and then when they say Michael.
But it's not Owoicho.
It's not Owoicho.
Okay.
No.
I guess it's that spirit, right? And it reminds me of Alegu in the book when, Owoicho's longtime friend from prior to even university. They're at the last night, he's going to send him off, and so kind of his friend to give him that amount of money to help him go to Canada. And you're sitting around the Sheraton pool, Owoicho and Ochanya, and he says, you're going to keep up that Nigerian spirit, right? Naja no de carry last.
Naija no dey carry last.
Naja no de carry last. So, coming back to that though, it seems like you need to explain that to us, because it seems that all people do is work. And it's interesting that the only time they kind of get off and have time together and they really go all out for a celebration turns out to be the independence from the British colonial rule on October 1st of 1960. So is that the only time? And, this having fun together, do they really support one another, or is there sometimes some deception in that support, Michael?
Well, so in Nigeria we have this thing, Naija no dey carry last, for those of you who don't know, so Naija no dey carry last is like a slogan Nigerians would say. We never come last, we're never at the bottom, we're resilient, we're made like that. And the Nigerians here will know that Saturdays are for weddings, like Owambe, And then I came to Canada, and so this is August to be 4 years since I arrived in Canada. And guess what? Last year was the first time I experienced summer. I was like, oh, this is what summer feels like, because I was working 2 jobs. I never went out, I never saw the sun.
Yeah.
And so last year was the first time, this is summer, wow. So, and it's not just Nigerians, lots of immigrants who do that. Where would you find them? They're working. Every now and then they'll come out to breathe and appreciate what's going on. But they're working, and they need to work because it's not just their lives here, right? It's the lives back home in Nigeria as well, or Iran, or Afghanistan, or wherever. You're supporting people back home there too.
Yeah.
So what time do you have to just give in and relax? And I wish we had more time to do that.
Yeah, I know. I hear you, and some of us are working 2 and 3 jobs as well. But I'll leave the deception clue for another motivation to read the book, because there is some deception in the support that they give one another. So maybe we can just shift now into the youth of Nigeria, because we focus a lot on Owoicho so far, but I was very interested to learn about contemporary youth in Nigeria in book 1, and it seems like there are youth pretty much everywhere. They're isolated from the real world. Their screens are TikTok chats, sexting, video games, and they hang out in sort of like a quasi-like community center called Rec DC, which was once a school of progressive learning and ideas that is now a place teens balkanized to smoke weed and seduce girls, like that illustrious Oche, a predator after Owoicho's daughter, Ochanya. Fortunately, Ochanya has a talent for art, and it seems that art will save her life twice. So there's another important clue about the book. Would you mind reading us page 219 and 220? Because this is going to be a little more about her life here, I think.
Yeah, and as I look for the page, just to say, we worry about the adults, they don't speak the language, how will they cope, But we also need to have those conversations about the youth, about our kids, because they don't often say how they feel. The older ones will go to work and discuss with their colleagues and talk about it, but our children, the kids, they come here and they experience the exact same things that we do, and they need support. And my 2 sons are here, Biboya and Wenedi, and I recall, even the nervousness of going to class sometimes because of the accent. And now they talk to me, I don't even understand what they're saying anymore. How quickly they changed.
So maybe from mid-page 219.
219? Wow, Ochanya, that's really huge. It is huge. Cheyenne and I have decided to collaborate on an acrylic painting we have titled Bones. bones? Why bones? Because it was the first thing that came to my mind when Miss Riley told us the story of the residential schools. Throughout that day, Sharon and I discussed the unmarked graves and the secret buried in them for many years. We talked about how best to express the emotions invoked in us, seeing all those bones buried beneath the earth, and it hit us. There's no black or brown or white in death. It's all bones. We all become bones. Death doesn't see colors, ethnicity, race, or religion. Death sees bones. And I'll stop here.
Yeah, and her new friend is indigenous also. She had an eagle feather.
The fact that, we share those similarities of being colonized, whether it was, settlers, or in our case, the British came and they left, but we shared that similarity, and I, for one, I endeavor to reach out, I really want to reach out, and I thought even in this book, as much as I can, to share that story. The world doesn't know, what Canada did to the owners of the land. I didn't know until I got here, and I'm educated. So I feel like the world needs to know, for all the right reasons. And that truth and reconciliation is something we must all devote ourselves, give ourselves to.
Yeah, and I can say that we're all working towards that.
Yeah.
And that you'll be a part of it as well, and the Nigerian diaspora, along with everyone else that comes. And I so much appreciated Moses' drumming, because it reminds me of how many indigenous events are opened with the drum. So it's wonderful. So I understood that was sort of part of the influence of the book, maybe the discovery of the graves, and also, the fact that you focused on Owoicho's story. There's a great merit in telling the story through Ochanya's eyes. So it's kind of like her coming of age as she lives here, and she's very different when she's in Nigeria, and then she suddenly becomes wise. Maybe even from that typical restless, obstinate teen to a mature, conscientious, worldly, wise woman in months. She's just the type of youth that Canada's looking for.
Yeah.
Smart, talented, and worldly beyond her age. But what matures Ochanya so quickly without giving the story away?
We want, I was going to say Canada wants. And then I realized I'm not a Canadian citizen, so we want we want diversity, right? And this is the diversity you asked for, that you walk into McNally Robinson and you read a book written by a Nigerian, and you'll be inspired by Nigerian lives and Nigerian stories. This is the diversity you asked for, and it's such a great thing and a great opportunity for every immigrant. And I see how hard, the young immigrants who come in. Because of my involvement in the settlement sector, I see young people involved, in youth programs and how committed and, they are. Peace Akintade, it's making Canada proud, and there's so many, names I could call. Doing writing competitions, STEM, inventing things, and bringing part of who they are, bringing their own resilience, inherent resilience to make Canada a better place. And like I said, we have to support the young people, we have to support the youth.
Yeah, and it seems that everything happens for a reason, and that continues throughout the book. It's kind of like a thread that goes through there. I wondered if there was any extra meaning for that, but maybe things do work out. Maybe Canada humbles a person. I'm not sure.
Things happen for a reason, and I think I'm connected to everybody in this room, And like when I met Carol, I never knew, I probably wasn't even writing this book at the time, But today you're here. When I met Dawn, Rhonda, make everybody here, like our paths crossed in like in a totally different setting, but today we're all here, we're all connected. So I think like things happen for a reason, happy or sad. Things happen for a reason, and I'm happy for my own experiences as well. Yeah.
And that's the hope that keeps everybody going, right? And so maybe we're close to the end here. I don't know how we're doing for time. Do we have a few more minutes?
We can close so the audience can ask questions.
Yeah, we close and then we'd ask questions. So Aroma, it seems, eventually becomes very proudly Canadian. And if I can quote her saying, "I did tell you," and I love the way you use the pigeon throughout the book, by the way, 100% Canadian. In fact, when I'm ready to write my will, I will put it there in black and white. Bury my body in Saskatoon. So it seems that in the end, some do feel truly at home, settled, but Owoicho is still resistant. I wonder if he'll feel that way. I wonder if he goes back. I think there's a moment when he has an offer, but that would be giving it away if we said anything more.
It will.
But he was almost ready to throw it.
Yeah, and like this is fiction, but how? So the other day, there was a first Facebook post about the book, and then I get phone calls from my village people. Michael, you're not coming back to Nigeria. Like, is this a message? Is this a subtle message? Like, no, you're not the writer. Like, so yeah, we don't know. Again, buy the book. We don't know who stays in Saskatoon and who goes back.
That's right. And I guess in the end we learn that there's no perfect country anywhere. But would you mind, just before we go into a question answer, if you could just read us this beautiful poem at the very beginning of the book? It has a great deal of meaning.
Yeah, so I guess my own personal story is similar to the story of the guy who worked in the cold room. Professional from back home in his country, and then he found himself in working, stacking beef or whatever. But to get that job, like if you were an accountant or a professor in a university and you have to do that job, you would have lied. Like you would have said, you would have lied that you're not a professor, and so. Very early on in my journey to Canada, my journey here in Canada, I lied, and that's the inspiration for this poem. And I wrote it as far back as 2021. So I lied. Remember my last photograph, the one you said smile, and I did? Newsflash, that smile was a lie. The picket fence, the fireplace, the call back home saying everything is fine, that too was a lie. But the cold, the blistering wind in February, that was true. Losing myself in my many identities, that again was true. It is true, these hands have never done laundry or shoveled snow, mowed the lawn or lifted heavy things. I have never driven a cab or dropped off orders, because I burnt every midnight oil, toiled so my voice was heard loud in the night skies and echoed in the prairies until my truth prevailed. I lied to be here, but my boys lied too.
It's very touching. And so how many dreams may have been buried here, and how many dreams are realized?
And my hope in writing this book finally, my hope in writing this book is that as an immigrant, you've come here with dreams. Don't let those dreams die. Let's not bury your dreams in Saskatoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. It's been a pleasure. Pulse to your hands. Yeah. Okay, I guess we can open it up for question and answer. How much time do we have?
We have about 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Okay. Who would like to go ahead?
So this is a work of fiction, Michael, and I'm getting that you have put a lot of yourself into this book and your experience into this book. Have you always done that as a writer, or is there something different about this book?
Yeah, I have never. Oh, sorry. I all of my other work, like I would never like do that. Of course, as a writer, I guess it's inevitable that every now and then, you know, a part of you gets into the story, the music you like, or you know, conversations you hear. You know, you throw it in every now and then. But this one, it was important for me because I felt like newcomers, immigrants, don't always tell their stories. Like they don't always tell their stories, and the experiences sometimes are real. They're good, sometimes not so good. But I kind of felt compelled to do that. Like, you know what? I'm not ashamed. Like, I came to Canada as a lawyer. You know, I came to Canada as someone who had worked, like, you know, done high-profile jobs in government. Not to talk of my career and reputation as a writer, you know, but I came to Canada and I had to do those jobs too. And I see people who would come here, and you know, this is like real. Like when we first got to Canada, and I was interacting with this person who was also, you know, new to Canada, and they would just say, "I'm going to work, I'm going to work," and they never told me where they worked, you know. And that would have helped me if they had told me, like, "Oh, yo, Michael." So I want to share, I want to be honest, and I want people back home to know. And I'm not saying, oh, don't come to Canada, because I'm not going back to Nigeria, I'm still here. So I'm not saying don't come, but be aware that it could be challenging. And so I had to borrow from some of my own experiences, and it was tough writing it, but it was also a catharsis for me. It was a way for me to also heal, like, you know what? I can talk about this, and people are watching. You know, it's been live streamed, and people are watching from all over. And I want to say that this is my experience. There's nothing to be ashamed of.
I have a question. Thanks, Michael, for this book. I struggle as a writer to publish in Saskatoon. You browse on the internet, you walk into places, and they don't reply your call. So how did you manage to get a Canadian publisher? Because I've been struggling to do that with this thing. So what do you do differently?
He's constantly on social media, and he's very
That's true. That's true. I put my work out there, I put my writing out there, and people would often contact me and make me these offers. I was talking to Mackenzie's dad, Mr. Modoc, about how many publishers I've had, and I think in the 6 books I've written, I probably have used like 4 or 5 publishers, and this book is simultaneously being published by 2 publishing firms, one in Nigeria and one here in Canada. So I think like I don't relent. The Nigerian, they carry last spirit again. I keep like writing and putting myself out there. And when I first started, people would question me like, why do you write stories and put it on YouTube? You know, you should be charging money for it. I'm like, no, I'm not going to charge money for it now. And in the end, it paid off, because people got to see my stories for free. And then I got the dream publishing, you know, contract that I wanted. So I think like my advice would be, don't relent. You know, you could have those doors shut on your face, but keep at it. And there's nothing wrong also with being self-published. You know, the first set of books I did was self-published, but the important thing was that people then recognized that Michael can write, or come and be the speechwriter to a governor, or come and do, like they knew I could do those things, because I put myself out there. And some people will say, oh, we're writers, it's a community, be shy about it, be not modest, but be conservative. But I'm not of that school of thought. Like, if singers and dancers, can get those big deals. I just saw this morning that a singer in Nigeria bought a Maybach. I want to be that writer who buys a Maybach.
Michael, I have a question.
Yeah.
Can you
Sure.
shed some light on why somebody like the character in the book, or somebody like yourself, a lawyer, a government official, chooses to leave their country and comes to Canada?
Yeah. Again, I can't speak for every immigrant because it's different for everyone. In my case, and my kids are here, and I don't know how much they remember, and if this is even a trigger for them, But yeah, when they remember like how many times we had to run into, like, lock you guys up in the bathroom, in the washroom, because we were hearing gunshots, right? So it wasn't safe. Like, it wasn't like we were poor or things like that. But at that point, our neighbor's wife was kidnapped, and we had to have police come and sleep in the house, like pay private security to come to the house. Otherwise, we couldn't sleep, And so we had to make that decision, like, you know what, I can't let my kids go through this trauma of hearing gunshots and things like that. So that was, I guess, one of the major reasons, besides wanting them to have, like, better shots in life, be internationally educated, would be some of the reasons. But I know when I came to Canada for the first time, like, we had that insecurity, that situation for like 3-4 years, right? And then I wouldn't sleep. And when I came to Canada, like, the first night I slept. Like, I slept. And I remember one night, a few months in, I had this big bang. I was like, oh my God, the guns have come again. And it was construction, they were doing like construction at night, right? So that's like, and again, like in this book, like I love my Nigerianness. I'm proud of my Nigerianness. Anybody who knows me knows that for sure, But I cannot deny the fact that our leaders back home in Nigeria have messed our country up. They've messed our country up, and that's the message, part of the message in this book. Like, if I could sleep at night, will I be here? If I could sleep at night, will I be here? If the corruption didn't exist, will I be here? If our systems work, will I be here? Those are tough questions, but I wish, like, our leaders did more to develop our countries. I wish elections were free and fair. I wish the right people ran the country, but that's not happening. And so people like us have to try our luck somewhere else. But it's hard.
Can I just add to that just a bit? So we sort of teased that out. I think I teased that out in book 1, because you can see that the school that was a very good progressive school has now sort of become run down, right? And so those opportunities go, and then there's, without portraying an entirely negative picture, but there were good things over time. Devaluation of the Naira and sort of corruption that sort of becomes systemic, right? And maybe this is happening with a lot of other places as well. That's one thing that, in the more people that I meet and learn about other countries' situations, it's a similar spiraling down, sort of post-2001 in particular. So I sense, I can almost envision before me some of the issues that are going on over there, and that special Wamba Junction, and that's another reason why you have to read the book, Wamba Junction.
And we do it for our children, like we do it for our children, like Lara, what's your son's name?
Nathan.
Huh?
Nathan.
Yeah. I bet you Lara is here because of Nathan.
And that's what people have done a long time here. They've come from 100 years or more away from somewhere else at some other time. Our ancestors, wherever they may be, European or otherwise. So all of us, and especially our new Nigerian diaspora and everybody who comes here, needs a little bit of sugar porn on them. Yeah, and that, you keep using that throughout the book, Michael. Nice clue. So every time I'm going to listen to that song now, I'll always think of you, Michael.
Yeah, it was funny because every time I went through, like I was going through stuff going through stuff, and I would get into the car and I'll turn on the engine, just pour some sugar on me. You just had to get into the book, like I couldn't help myself.
In the name of love, right? Pour some sugar.
I have a question. Yeah. So congratulations on your Canadian citizenship. So my question is, like, going forward, like maybe it's a sign for a book too, from a perspective of still being an immigrant and being Canadian. Do you see the difference of being an immigrant and now being Canadian? Do you have the same challenges, or are you now in a different set of challenges you're facing every time, or?
Yeah, it keeps changing. Really, it's a different set of challenge. I think it doesn't go away completely, right? So I remember when I became a citizen in February, and I just had the blue passport on my bed, and it was there for 1 week. I'm like, I'm leaving this passport on my bed for 1 week. So every time I sleep and I turn, it was my Canadian passport. And then I was in Halifax. On Monday, Tuesday, came back on Wednesday, and on the flight back, I saw this, immigrant family, and they held the Canadian passport, and of course they had lost the accent and everything, sounding really Canadian, and it just dawned on me at that moment that if something had happened at the airport and they said, oh, all the Canadians jump into the plane, it would have taken me a minute to remember I was Canadian. So you don't. It's dicey, right? Like you feel, you're Canadian, but you feel like, okay, am I Canadian, and then those challenges don't go away. I'm ED now, and my story, right? My story. I'm ED now, but there's still, it doesn't go away. You still walk into rooms and okay, you get comments and you ask yourself okay, is this what I think it is? Is this a rude comment, or is my English not good enough? You get really confused. So you have those experiences, and it doesn't go away, and I wish it does.
Well, in some cases, it's taken people 50 years. But in some cases.
Can I ask a question? This might be a little personal, but then it's up to you. So there's a part in the story where you said, well, you had
read
a name
the book.
change. No, I haven't. Just listening. You had a name change. If you were to tell us your real name from home, your local name, can you tell us, and what does it mean?
Oh, for sure, without hesitation. So my Nigerian Ijo name, that's my tribe, is Perepase, and so Perepase means ninth wealth, because my parents had 10 kids, 10 children, and then I'm the ninth child, and so every child is considered, my dad thought every child was like wealth, represented wealth, and I'm the ninth child, so I'm the ninth wealth. So, growing up, everyone called me Dad, but when I was in college, my first week or day in college, I introduced myself, and even back home in Nigeria, people struggle to pronounce pepper soup. Pepper soup, so I'm like, what, I'm tired. I'm tired of deciding, like, I have this name, middle name, perhaps I would be Michael, and that solved that trauma of people to bastardize my name. But my initials then was the PNA, because I thought like that per se was prominent, and my family members would still call me that. And now that I'm older and wiser and here, like, I wish people would call, like, I wish I had kept that name really, but I lost it, and so many people have lost names, language, culture, but one thing I told myself I'll never lose is my Nigerian kaftan.
Was there anything else you wanted to touch on before I close things up?
Oh, just to thank, for me, just to thank everyone, thank everyone, like, my anxiety that this room was going to be empty. And before I go, to say that, as immigrants, we miss so many things, and my son ate Nigerian meat pie. So I was like, oh God, Nigerian meat pie. He was so excited. So underneath your chairs, you'll see goodie bags, and there's some Nigerian meat pie inside.
I'll just say a word before I let you. It's good. I think I will borrow yours. Thank you so much. All right, I'll just say a quick word before I let you mingle. I'd like to thank Michael, Moses, and Anita again for being with us tonight. I'd also like to thank Bukola Akinyemi for working with us to create this event. Michael will be sticking around to sign books, and of course we have copies of Leave My Bones in Saskatoon for sale. You're more than welcome to get your copies signed before you purchase them. Please just make sure to stop at the cash desk on your way out the door. Thank you all so much for supporting local talent and independent booksellers. Have a wonderful evening.
I do. She's awesome. Yes.